Crossover country sweetheart Taylor Swift is back with her new album, 1989.
At least that's what people say.
It's named after the year of her birth, but it also takes its musical cues from the late 80s too.
Stop moving. It's like
I met her in London to talk about serial dating, the media's obsession with her love life, twerking, and how her fans keep her sane. I started by asking her what were the main musical influences on 1989.
baby, I'm just gonna shake, 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 shake.
Some names. I'm very interested in the idea of the late 80s and how bold that pop music was. I feel like it was so ahead of its time. There are songs that come to mind for me, like She Drives Me Crazy by Fine Young Cannibals. And Like a Prayer by Madonna came out that year. I'm also obsessed with what Peter Gabriel was doing, and sonically I love Flock of Seagulls. And just people like Annie Lennox was genius, and then a little later on was Sinead O'Connor, and just people I've been obsessed with beyond.
It's a real kind of European electro sensibility.
Yes, yeah, like kind of British synth pop happening.
When you were growing up in Pennsylvania, when you were in high school, did you hear a lot of that stuff on the radio?
I think my influence, and when I became obsessed with it, was when I would watch, we had this show called Pop-Up Video in America, which would play, in the 90s, it would play videos that were maybe 5 or 6 years old from the late 80s.
I wanna be the sledgehammer.
And so I would just watch this as a kid, and I'd see videos by, old Madonna songs and songs that were really kind of prominent back, 5 years before. And I've always been really influenced by lots of different things musically, and I've tried to stay really open to that, because I think that, when you're making your 5th album, you can make things the way you've always made them, and that's fine, and it'll work, and that'll do, but it's not the same as if you continue to surprise people. I think people don't know they want to be surprised, but I think they do want to be surprised.
I think your fans are going to stay with you. But you've described this yourself as your first documented pop album.
Yeah.
A lot of people would consider that a bold statement.
Yeah, I think that it's been a long time coming. If you listened to anything I've been making in the last 3 to 4 years, you can see the pop sensibilities creeping in. With my last album, Red, I collaborated with a lot of different people because I was just in a very experimental mood. And what ended up happening was I decided that I liked working with a few of those collaborators the most, and those collaborators were the ones who I made the poppiest music with. So that really carried over into this new album, and I like the fact that this album feels sonically cohesive. I'm not trying to do too many things. I'm not trying to make a country song one track and then a dubstep track the next. It's much more streamlined.
The songs you've heard, Blank Space, is rather excellent. It's got that killer lyric, and you were known for your killer lyrics. I'm a nightmare dressed like a daydream.
Thank you.
How biographical is that, Taylor?
Well, that song I actually wrote as a joke. As I just decided that I'd been writing from an autobiographical perspective for so long, and I'd been writing just kind of true confessional feelings. And one day I was thinking a lot about how the media has kind of fictionalized my personal life to the point where it's kind of cartoonish.
Shake, 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 shake. Shake it off, I shake it off. I never miss a beat. I'm lightning on my feet.
They've written up this kind of stereotypical profile of this over-emotional, like...
Man-eater?
Yeah, exactly. But reels them in, serial dater, jet sets around the world, and then becomes clingy and desperate and crazy, and then loses them, but then they come back, but then she scares them off again. Just this whole thing. And I started thinking about how complex that character sounds, and how interesting she is. If I was that girl, Blank Space is the song that I would write as sort of my mission statement on life.
So the blank space is the next victim that the media thinks is going to be. That's what it refers to.
It says, I've got a long list of ex-lovers. They'll tell you I'm insane, but I've got a blank space, baby. Like a blank space on the list of exes.
In other words, what you're with that song and Shake It Off, you're taking it back from them. You're taking your narrative, as it were, back from them. That's the idea.
It's a really excellent observation. And I'm so glad that you get that, because that's kind of one of the newer themes to what I've been doing, which is if you laugh at yourself, it's not as funny when other people laugh at you because you made the joke first.
People have been asking about feminism. I mean, people
Yeah.
now want to portray you as a kind of the new feminist role model. You take that as a compliment, I would imagine.
Oh, I take it as an honor. It's a big topic of conversation amongst me and my friends. We talk about it all the time, and I think it's a important discussion for girls to have with each other about what their idea of feminism really is, because I think a lot of young girls don't necessarily understand the word or the phrase or, you know, the term or what it actually means to be a feminist. And I think what's interesting about being a feminist is that it's different for every girl, what your definition of it is.
But I keep cruising, can't stop, won't stop.
Talk to me on a lighter note about trying to twerk in the video for Shake It Off. Were you trying, or did you need a lot of practice?
I was not really trying. I was trying to. That video was just about dancing as badly as you possibly can. I think for me, I read all these comments from my fans about how they feel embarrassed all the time, they feel humiliated or left out or lonely. And so I guess I just wanted to make a music video that was just sort of embarrassing and sort of like just not cool, like not being cool at all, not trying to be. Because I wanted, you know, I can tell them all I want, be yourself. It doesn't matter if people think you're sexy or edgy or cool. But if I don't lead by example, then I'm not actually conveying that message fully. So with this video, like, it's not a sexy video, but it conveys a message I really want to get across to girls, that, like, if that's not your thing, you don't have to try to be like everyone else.
I mean, the constant scrutiny of yourself over the past, 6 years now, a lot of it has been obviously very positive, but from the media it's been negative. We talked about that earlier on. That is a form of bullying, though, isn't it?
You know, I would say absolutely. I think that's an accurate observation. I think that there are people who have it a lot worse off than I have it. You know, people who are in school and are constantly made fun of and tormented and feel like they have no outlet for it. I'm very lucky because I have songwriting. And I have, you know, wonderful, incredible, enthusiastic fans who are right there to tell me that none of the things that people say matter to them. At the end of the day, you just have to try to find a way to stay sane. Like, there's a balance to it all. And I have bad days where I focus on it and I feel like there's nothing that I do that's right, and no matter how hard I try, you know, you're gonna have people that just can't find one good thing about you. But focusing on those people is the quickest way to lead an unhappy life.
Another of the new songs is Out of the Woods, and again, lyrically quite interesting and quite contradictory, because your take on romance has never been the fairy tale take on romance. Do you think the fairy tale even exists?
Well, I think I used to, before I really experienced relationships, I was writing songs about relationships when I was 16 or 17 based on the fantasy of what they might be like. The idea that there is a happily ever after, you know, love story is very, you know, fantasy oriented. And then you have sort of like your first heartbreak. That was what my third and fourth albums were about. And then this album is about where you kind of get to a place where you're not cynical about it, but you're not a hopeless romantic anymore. You're a realist.
In terms of lyrics, are you always writing, are ideas popping into your head all the time, or do you have to sit down for a period and get the stuff together?
I try to stay pretty open to inspiration every single day, all day. And if I come up with some line that I feel like sounds like it should be a highlighted line, or it sounds like it's an interesting observation, I'll write it down in this kind of notepad that I have in my phone. And when it comes time to finish a song, I'll just go through all the lines and look at them and go, okay, this works for this works for that. It's really fun. It's fun to continue to stay open to inspiration all the time and always be looking.
What about the folks in Nashville? Now that you're making this gradual kind of move away from, you know, what you started with, has there been any kind of backlash, do you think?
They've been a dream, honestly. I am so blown away because those are people that I have loved for a very long time. Those are the relationships that I was so terrified of losing, but making this creative decision, it had nothing to do with them. And so I'm so happy that, you know, the CMA and people like that have been so incredibly supportive, because they understand I'm not doing something mean. I'm not doing something spiteful. I'm doing something that's a creative change. And I don't think you can really hold that against someone.
I shake it off, I